So today we are talking about pride and equity. It is right now. Yes, it is. We're talking about pride and equity, the topic of the show today. So, I'd like to uncover a few topics that, such as what's it like, being a person of color, and also ticking the box of being part of the LGBTQ community. So if you're interested in having that conversation with me, feel free to come up or ask your questions in the chat or share your stories in the chat. And if you're just joining in, I'm just letting, yeah, exactly. Just letting everyone know that we are having a wonderful conversation today. I'd like for it to be a conversation, so feel free to pop up on stage if you like, about pride of the LGBT community and equity. We want everyone to be treated fairly and have an even playing field out there. Hey, no problem, Sam. How are you? We want everyone to feel comfortable. Oh, yeah, for sure. Hey, let Ayana up on stage. I'm happy to share some stories about being a queer woman of color because it's definitely a different experience, I will say. Hi, Ayana. Thanks for joining me up here. I appreciate it. I'm well. I look forward to hearing a little bit about your story as well. For me, it took a very long time for me to come out. And I've examined that for a long time, as we all do. Why couldn't I say anything? In the Black community, it is a little different. We tend to be a little more conservative. And so coming out to your family is not always an easy process. And I know that was somewhat of a factor. But growing up as I did in a predominantly Caucasian environment, I was already always different. And looking back on that with my 2020 lenses in hindsight, I see that played a huge part in me delaying letting people know that I was gay. And I think it was, when you're already feeling like perhaps you're different than everyone, to tick one more box of difference is a heavy load. And, I don't think I was prepared to carry that load. And so it kept me in the closet for make than I should have been. But I know now. And, I look back on that experience and I say, those are the things that make me who I am today. I wouldn't know how to talk to people about this if I hadn't experienced what I experienced internally and externally. And side note, just as I had feared when I did finally come out, my family was less than supportive about it. It didn't make a huge impact except for an emotional impact. I wasn't young enough to be, thrown out of the house or anything like that. But I was taken aback, but I was able to build and move on. And I acknowledge that there are hundreds and thousands of folks out there who do not have enough support when they come out, and they have family members that treat them very poorly once they learn about that snippet of their lifestyle. We all in this community support those folks. I support every single person who is having adversity in trying to come out, because I know that I did, but I was old enough and strong enough at that point in my life to be able to roll with it. And I know that there are many that cannot, and it's difficult for them to do so. And so that's a little bit about me being a queer woman of color, because there's a million stories, there's a million things. A lot of people, it's not something I lead with because I don't feel like we have to lead with our sexuality. Hetero people don't. So why should we be expected to? So when people ask me, are you married? I say, yeah, sure, I'm married. And they ask, do I have kids? I say, yeah, I have kids. And then I always get the, I didn't know you were married to a woman. And I go, well, what does it matter? You asked if I was married. You didn't say, were you married to a woman? Because you knew that would have been inappropriate. So, what are we talking about now? So, there's always that bit. And then of course, peppered in with being of color, there's another set of circumstances in play already with that. So sometimes it can be a burden, and sometimes it's just another talking point, which I'm okay with. Welcome, Lisa.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, ladies. Go ahead.
I was just curious how long you and your wife have been married.
We have been married for 7 years, but we've been together for going on 11.
And how did you meet?
What's that?
How did you meet?
We met. She was my Zumba instructor. That's how we met.
That's awesome.
That is awesome.
Yep. Good old times. Ayana, I know that you popped on and I said I wanted to hear some more from you. Are you having sound issues or anything like that?
No, can you guys? I had it on mute for a minute. Can you hear me?
Okay, I can hear you. I can no longer see you, but that's okay. I just didn't know if that was a breakdown that you were having.
No, I don't. I'm not sure. I thought I had my camera on.
I can see her. It does. There's a little bit of a delay. That's why sometimes we're accidentally cutting you off because there's a little bit of a delay. Okay. But yeah. Anyway.
Oh no.
Did you want to share?
No worries. Sure. Just my experience being a BIPOC member in the cannabis community. It's so hard for us to talk about this in the scope that it's not a gateway drug, or it's in the scope of what it is. Like, so many generations have been feeding into the stigma that this is a gateway drug, that cannabis doesn't heal. But I slowly see the dialogue changing, not fast enough for me, because our view of cannabis is also keeping us out of a $1 billion industry. And it's like we're kind of hurting ourselves holding on to these kind of antiquated ideas instead of, listening and doing the research, or, even having conversations with your children about it. You don't have to start straight with cannabis when they're younger. You can, introduce plant medicine, introduce botany, things like that. But we have to get out of this box that we have that when we talk cannabis. And I don't mean just THC. We can talk hemp, we can talk CBD, we can talk other, plant medicines in general, because it is a collective of things that's kind of getting our health back to where we are and reawakening our ECS. So it's just like, why not? We need these conversations. We need these spaces like Tokeativity every month, where I know I could be amongst a group of, like-minded people, be it cannabis, be it travel, be it supporting the BIPOC community. Like, I know I have a place to go and be myself, at least for, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, whenever I can hop in, because, moms in general catch hell. Black moms catch double hell. And it's just, having spaces are getting not more and more rare. Luckily, it is kind of, ramping up. But like the Sheeta, for instance, she talks to her church.
It's still pretty rare, though.
Yeah. Yeah, and it really depends on where you live as well. Some places are not as cannabis friendly, and you can't, talk about it without fear of CPS being called or the police being called. You throw in things like public housing and it being illegal there. Again, another federal, prohibition thing that needs to kind of be taken care of. But there's so many aspects where cannabis can be weaponized against us that I understand the hesitation. I understand the closetness of it all, but I still want to create a space where you can ask and consume responsibly.
Yes, for sure. No, I appreciate that. And I agree. We need to have these conversations. That's why we have in Bridges, the courageous conversations. We talk about a lot of things. We talk mostly about, race, equity, and inclusion, but we do talk about cannabis because, we are cannabis professionals and educators and things like that. So and there's a stigma there. So there's a bridge to be built there as well. So I agree wholeheartedly. Lisa.
Yes.
Did you have anything that you wanted to share? Or did you have any more questions or anything like that?
Well, I actually just sitting here listening kind of made me think about the idea of being yourself, you know, and what does being yourself mean? And it means something different to everybody. And how much we all struggle many times to figure out who we are, to then communicate that with other people, and then to figure out the circumstances of how we're expressing that. And I really do I do appreciate, you know, and want to make space for people to feel like they can be themselves, and whatever that means, you know, and that means something different day to day. Sometimes it's emotional. Sometimes it's just being able to take a breath and be like, I don't need to perform today. I don't need to perform for 5 minutes, or whatever that means. And so I was curious, Ayana, when you said being yourself, and how you can be that for 10 or 20 minutes, even here at Tokeativity. What does that mean for you?
Even just as a Black woman, people are afraid to ask, well, what's the difference between CBD and THC? Like they don't, some people are just afraid enough to not even give the impression that they're consuming. And that could be for a multitude of reasons. It could be a court case, it could be parole, it could be child protective services, it could be a job, or, you know, there's so many reasons why cannabis can, you know, people stay kind of in the green closet because there's huge ramifications. Like I don't want to, you know, make light of it at all. I'm actually honored and kind of feel like a survivor's remorse that I can be so vocal about my cannabis use and not have, you know, my daughter's older. There are no active threats. My job is actually in the cannabis industry in addition to my brand. So it's like I can't get any more vocal, and that's like an honor to me, but there's hundreds and thousands of people who can't. So I want to just, you know, provide a space where you can pop in and say, oh, okay, well, that's how you roll a joint. Okay, see you later. Like I just like regular things that people that bring people together. Is not always like educational stuff. I kind of like bringing everybody together monthly with our High Rollers Club and just say, hey, how was your week? How have you been consuming? I found, you know, this worked for me. Has anybody else had this type of effect? It's just like a sounding board for people that look like you to get, you know, some of the things. Yes, Mary Beth, thank you. I'm a sucker for puns and innuendos and stuff like it. It's a bad trait, but
Hey.
So, you know, oh, go ahead, and I'll add after you're done, Anna.
I was.
You know, I like what you're saying about having a place for persons, you know, who look alike to be able to come and share. But, you know, I'm going to say this. I look forward to a time when we can move away from having to search for the commonality of skin color in order to be able to be ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
It pains me that there has to be a search for someone who looks like me and has my background in order for me to feel comfortable enough to ask a question. There's something dangerously wrong with society, folks, when we have to seek segregation before we seek information.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just let that sink in. Such an old and antiquated.
Yeah, and this ties into the social equity and a lot of the laws and things that they're passing. Like they have ramifications beyond like, oh, I can just go out and smoke weed freely now. Like a lot of these laws and ordinances and, you know, everything have lifelong ramifications. You know, even down to how, even down to how we interact with law enforcement. How, you know, although you hear 20 million, I'm exaggerating, of course, but you hear so many CBD and cannabis commercials and ads and things like that, and you think we kind of turned that corner of, well, can I get stopped for the smell of weed? I know it's illegal, but police officers are still, you know, weaponizing it against us. So it's just like, it's not this utopia that a lot of people assume it is. It is a lot of work to be done, but I always want to encourage people on ways that they can support the cannabis community without touching the plant. So lawmaking, supporting your cannabis users that's in your family. Like, just, you can have a conversation over Thanksgiving, I should hope, and say, well, okay, I want to know a little bit more. Like, start moving the conversation, and time is of the essence. Time is of the essence.
Indeed. Indeed. Yeah, we do need to normalize having conversations about cannabis because it's a viable product and commodity in the United States. I'll just talk about the United States. It's here. People are selling it. People are spending millions of dollars on licensure. People are making millions of dollars, if not billions of dollars. We need to start having normal conversations about it because it's just another product that you buy in the store, right? But truthfully, and this is just a PSA, if there's anybody in the room or somebody that you or someone thinks that that cannabis is an easy breeze, and if you're of color and you have questions about that, or if you're not of color and you have questions about that, I urge you to ask those questions and understand what's really going on. There is a stark difference between licensed and regulated cannabis that is of color and not of color. The differences are entering the industry itself and then operating in the industry. Because you can enter through a lot of different programs, or if you have enough money, you can go ahead and enter. But your treatment is going to be a world different if you're a person of color. And so, just to circle back to the topic and the reason why we have this space that Tokeativity, Club Kindness, and Vanguard Media Online curates this space is because we need to talk about removing a lot of those barriers through information and through conversation, asking questions and finding out what really is going on. So people, like you said, to your point, Ayana, can stop living in that utopia thinking, oh, well, racism doesn't exist anymore. Look, everybody can do this. Racism is long gone. Why do you keep playing the race card? Well,
or look,
you can't play a card that's not in the deck.
Yes.
Anybody ever tried that? Anybody ever try to play a card game and go, oh, I want twos, but the twos are over on the other table? You can't play a card that doesn't exist in a deck. So the fact that you even mention or reference a race card being played means that it is still in play, it is still live and active, and it's still what's going on. So we have to be able to talk to each other, ask those questions, and try to make a bridge. It's pun intended all the way around. We're trying to create some sort of passageway that has information, it has kindness in there, it has openness in there. And these are the ways that we do finally get rid of all those stigmas that come along with subjects. Sometimes the subject is people, sometimes it is a plant, sometimes it's something else, but we need to be able to have that conversation if we want. Just to go back to what Vonda was talking about on the main stage, if you want to have change, you're going to have to use one of those C's she talked about, and the biggest one you're going to use is courage. And I put in the chat out there that courage is equal to strength. It is, because they're kind of interchangeable. I have the courage to speak out, I have the strength to speak out. So I just urge everyone to really try to do that. Open up those conversations, have them ask the questions. If there's anybody in the audience right now who has a question, in regards to, LGBTQ, being Black, being of color, other, ask the question. That's what the room is open up for. And I know we'll try to answer that. Those of us who are on stage will try to answer it to our best ability. And I think we've got a diverse seats up here. So I'm excited about that.
Yes. Go ahead, Lisa. I'm sorry.
Well, before I forget, you had mentioned like CPS and like how your kiddo is older now and that you don't have that fear anymore. I wanted to let everybody know that Sweet Jane Magazine is coming out with a guide to CPS, which is something I've been really hoping somebody would do. And because it's so hard to navigate and confusing and really scary for moms and parents out there, I look forward to learning more about it and to sharing with everybody about it. But if you're not following Sweet Jane Magazine, definitely give them a follow. And, courage. Coming back to courage. We have courage every single day. We take that into our cells, and just showing up today probably took some kind of courage. Being on screen, sharing about being gay or, being Black and gay, and It takes courage. And I hope that while you're here today, whether you're watching now or you're watching later, you find your courage to be yourself, whatever that means to you. Tiffany, I'm curious about when you hear being yourself, what does that mean to you?
It means freedom to me. When people can be themselves, you're just free to do what comes naturally, and you don't fear repercussions for it. I love the question because so many people are not being themselves, and it's not because it's not that that colloquial fake. Oh, she's fake, he's fake. It's not that. They actually are not free enough in their environments, in their families, or in their social circle to really truly be themselves and say what they want to say and believe in what they want to believe. And it's always sad to me because I have no filter. I really don't. I mean, I think that the people who are here and around at Tokeativity have heard me flap my gums enough to know that I seriously don't have a filter. That's me being me. When I filter myself, that's me being someone else. And sometimes we have to do that. Sometimes we can't just let it all hang out. And society does dictate that at times because it's attached to your money or it's attached to your next opportunity. So sometimes you have to curb yourself. But truly being yourself is a level of freedom that I hope that every single individual on this planet gets a taste of at some point in life.
Absolutely. And Lisa, can I touch on another twist to carriage, if I could? Just being a BIPOC or LGBT brand owner in the cannabis industry is going to take courage, because you're going to draw the ire of so many. This industry is very white, cis male dominated. And a lot of times you're going to be the only in the room, but be it the only Black woman, the only Black person. So to stand in these rooms and kind of stand in this storm is going to take a tremendous amount of courage to know that your stuff, that you're not any less than anybody else because this person has a degree or this person has this experience. This is a new industry, and a lot of us are pioneers in our space where we're kind of doing the blueprint for what we want to see. And sometimes that draws the anger out of people. Sometimes that draws how dare you come and take up this space that was not meant for you. So you definitely have to get courage on so many other levels that it's just, I kind of want to, kind of warn people, you'll grow a thick skin, you'll grow, and it absolutely sucks that you have to, but you also have to know how to protect your peace while walking through the lion's den. And you ladies creating spaces for people to kind of get, because sometimes we're not intimidated, but we just don't feel like the bullshit when we ask a guy for a question, he mansplains it and talks. It's we don't feel like that. So having spaces like Bridges or, Can Inclusive or any type of space that really has highlighted these communities and has actually done the work, because there's the difference. Turning your social media square Black is not enough anymore. You have to get your hands dirty. You have to pick a side. And that side is social equity and doing this the right way, and then the other way where you're just in it for money. You have to pick a side. So it's just having spaces. You want to cultivate and nurture the spaces or the brands that create those spaces for you. And that takes courage, because I'm sure you ladies have probably gotten calls, many of not nice names, told you couldn't do it. It was a bad idea, but you did it anyway. And that wouldn't have been done without courage.
There's always somebody trying to throw something in your way. And
oh yeah. Hey, we got Amber, who's.
What'd you say, Tiff?
We've got Amber in the chat here who has asked what I think is a really good question and kind of a situation that I think many of us deal with. How do I deal with the constant perception from certain execs that any thought or suggestion I have is coming from the lesbian? They take everything that I say with a grain of salt. That is quite difficult, and that is so unfair. Again, if you remember, I said I don't always lead with who I am because I don't have to. because I don't need to tell everybody what my sexual preference is when I walk into the room or when they meet me. But if I do, you can best believe for damn sure we're not ever going to talk about it again. And if we do talk about it, we're only going to talk about it when I bring it up. So I would call them out on that immediately and succinctly and whisper so you'll know they're listening, that your points of view do not come from your sexual orientation, and that is inappropriate. And if I hear it again, I'm going to file harassment charges of a sexual nature, because it is not okay for anyone to ever reference your sexual orientation in the boardroom, at work, wherever, unless it's coming from you. And then you'd better make sure that it's appropriate time for you to do so. So how I would deal with that is directly and certainly. And if they press upon something like that, then I would pull out the HR block and go, hey, I will file a harassment case against you if you keep bringing up or alluding to this is my idea because I'm a lesbian. It's completely unfair. I really hope that helped.
I also know that for those of you who are not following Livy Smalls on Instagram or TikTok, she had a sexual harassment lawsuit that she won in the cannabis space. And one of her suggestions was to keep your receipts, keep track of what happens, who said what, yes. Keep track of things digitally in case you need it. Unfortunately, if you are the victim of something like that, you have to prove yourself, and keeping track of what's going on and when and who and all that stuff is part of that. So make a file on your computer, put it up on your Google Drive or whatever, keep track of things. And like Tiffany said, if you work in a company that has an HR department, which a lot of companies in the cannabis space don't. They just don't. There's big companies that do, and there's a lot of small companies that don't. And HR is also the business owner, is also the,
the dad,
everybody
else, uncle, somebody. And also
right,
to your
startup environment.
Yeah. I'll say your suggestion, Lisa, also don't keep record on the company's electronic, like your your work laptop or your computer. Keep your own separate record. Write down if you have to, but keep your record separate. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely keep it a record on your own device, and do not be attached to the internet or intranet of your office. But definitely keep your records, because they come in handy if it does get to a state where you have to get, litigious, if that happens.
I gotta hop off because I'm gonna get ready for the main stage, which I'll see you all back there in a few.
Yep, you'll see in just about 4 minutes.
Oh, thank you, Lisa.
Thank you.
So, any other questions in the audience? We have a few more minutes left. I really do appreciate you guys joining us for yet another Bridges conversation. We talked a little bit about some of everything in here. We talked a lot about cannabis, which we don't usually talk about cannabis, but we're all cannabis professionals and we know how it is out there. We talked a little bit about, I know my experience being a person of color and gay, not only in the industry of cannabis, but in life. This is the path I walk, and, I wouldn't change a thing. But, if you guys have any questions in regards to that experience, I am so happy to share. I'm not going to bore you with the details of the life of Tiffany, without being asked the question. So, it's great to see you too, Takesha.
Hi, Takesha. Yes.
Ayana, I will ask you this. You did mention on the stage, that there are spaces, travel spaces that are not, BIPOC friendly. Can you give me the reasons why you label them that way?
Sometimes it's just when you go and kind of see how
you're dealing with.
It's sometimes, yeah. Sometimes, words translate, say in Italy, for instance, it may translate as literally the N-word, and there's a cultural thing, or you may not receive services in some places in Europe simply because of your skin. And it's, you know, it might be okay for the LGBT community that, you know, a white male, a gay male, a gay white male might be okay there, but a Black woman of any, or a person of any color will, you know, be refused services. So it's, you know,
Right.
it's hard to see which one is ingrained mostly, but yeah, it unfortunately happens sort of like the. Go ahead.
Oh yeah, I just thought that bared just another few words upon it, so that people really understand how blatant racism can be. You know, we rest on the laurels of kind of these rules, even though we know that racism exists, and some of it's blatant and some of it's very quiet and some of it's just microaggressions. But you know, I know in my lifetime, you know, and I'm relatively old, in my lifetime, I have not necessarily been refused service solely because I'm Black, but in other countries, there is, in other countries, it's a lot more blatant. So I just thought that you know, people should hear a little bit more about that, how they experience traveling around the world. You know, can be the same, if not a little worse, and sometimes a little better, but it's, you know, it's still racism no matter what. Go ahead.
No, I'm just very briefly, I know we're going to head to the main stage, that a lot of, some of the world's perception of Black people are just by American media. So they think of us as gangbangers, and, you know, racist far reaching. It's not just here, it has an impact worldwide. So they have this stereotype of you of being a thief or a drug abuser. And then here you are in their mind buying, you know, in their shop. Are you stealing? Are you doing such and such? And they just, you know, and it, like the ADA, a lot of the laws doesn't automatically translate to international waters, or, you know, also it's nobody for you to report to or put Yelp, or, you know, well, on the US side you can, but again, it's just one of those things we have to navigate in this world.
Yeah. No, it is.
Yeah, the media does not help.
No, the media is absolutely horrible when it comes to what it is. They catch some of the worst actors and then apply it to us all. And, you know, I will say, if you get to walk around not having to be the representation of the worst actors in your race, that is the epitome of privilege. And so when you recognize that, if you ever recognize that, say something, do something, and yeah. Remember that when you get to walk around and you don't have to be subject to being treated a certain way based on the worst players of your race or those who look like you, then you are walking within extreme privilege, and take note of that.
Yeah.
But I will say thank you, everyone, for joining us in for this conversation, this courageous conversation, and we'll see you soon. You'll be able to catch this on YouTube and a couple of other places. Just check it out, and we'll talk to you very soon. Bye, everyone.